that sin acting in my members, in my flesh. Okay? So then it says here, Cain told this to his brother Abel, and they were in the field. Cain stood up against his brother Abel and killed him. What did he use to kill him, my friend? A stone, a rock. He killed his brother. That's the murderer from the beginning. You see? You failed. Hold on.
Okay, so now.
You failed.
So now, here's the thing. Imagine if I say that is not a weapon. That I say that stone is not a weapon. I already know what your response will be. You were like, man, come on now. That was a murder weapon, man. That was used.
Law and grab a hammer and say that the hammer is not a weapon.
Like I said, I'm saying sarcastically, that you know that stone, and I know that stone is a weapon. But that flaming sword is also a weapon.
My friend,
so we're not going to say that's not a weapon, just like we're not going to say that stone is not a weapon. At the same time, we're going to go in chronological order, and we're going to say that the flaming sword was the first murder weapon. So therefore, it is the one that I am addressing, flaming sword, flaming devil, flaming lake of fire, all this fire.
Bridge, prove the
flaming sword is the devil's weapon.
Harm on anybody. Prove that. Prove that the flaming sword inflicted harm on anyone, on anybody.
Now, the sword, as you know and I know, we both know this, respectfully, my friend, we both know this, that the sword, right, never, ever had any blood on the tip. It never penetrated.
So what are you talking about?
Right? Wait, we both agree, right? All right, so we both agree. So now, just because it didn't penetrate doesn't mean that it wasn't still a weapon. Remember that they couldn't get past that weapon. So if they could have got past that, they could have lived forever, right?
Bridge,
so who put that weapon there? The one who did not want them to live forever.
I have not committed murder with any of those weapons that I own. What are you talking about? They're not murder weapons. They're weapons of self-defense,
like
brother.
This.
They're weapons of self-defense.
Check it out. It's also used to guard. A weapon could be, example, like a rock on your property or something like that, or electric fences.
God had every right to defend his domain, called Garden of Eden. He had every right to defend his domain.
Okay, but the point is that when God put that, it says that God put that flaming sword in front of the tree of life.
So you don't have an alarm in your house?
The thing is like this: if I have a sword,
you don't have an
alarm trying
in
to get into my garage. You see that? What I'm saying with the sword, you're not going to be able to get past me. But if you do get past me, you get the medicine inside of the garage. You get it?
Hey, Bridge.
But you can't get past me. So then that's how you die. You die because I won't allow you to get the medicine. That is the murder.
You're conflating. You're tripping on your own sword. You're cutting yourself.
You're not even finishing the verse that you're reading.
I quoted it verbatim. Go ahead. Want me to quote it again?
And you're knitting a false fabric, and I'm tearing it apart, bro, with my hands. I'm not using my sword.
Again, I agree that you brought the murder weapon, which is the stone, right? That's fine. You brought the stone as one of the murder weapons, but that's an after effect. There was another murder weapon before that. Ain't nobody on the planet ever going to say that a flaming sword is not a murder weapon.
Bridge, I brought 4 witnesses against what you just said. I brought Cain, his hands, the stone, Abel, and his blood. 5. What are you talking about,
Adam, Eve, the devil, and the flaming sword, and the tree of life.
Show me the first murder. I just showed you Genesis 4.
The first murder was this. So let's go back before the flaming sword was introduced. Wasn't there the skins? What was that?
I'm glad you went there.
The skins, man. Was that before the flaming sword or after?
That's not murder.
Exactly why it was put there.
Correct. And it's
all right, so y'all don't wanna from a Hindu perspective, they'll say murdering animals is a murder.
Let me ask you a question.
But y'all don't wanna go with that? No problem.
Bridge, do you have children?
No problem.
Bridge, do you have children?
Yeah, bro.
Or do they eat meat?
Yeah.
All right, then you're a murderer. You're murdering animals.
According to the Hindu perspective, yes, they'll say that.
So then you consider yourself a murderer because you have to feed your family.
No, I just say that that's the Hindu perspective. I'm not going to say I don't agree with them.
Don't leave outside of the Bible. Stay in the square, bro. Why are you running outside the ring?
No, I'm not going to bring other religions.
You want to switch from boxing to dirt bike racing? Nah, bro. Stay in the ring. Stay in the boxing ring, bro.
I agree. So
then, Bridge. Let me tell you something. If you find yourself in the wilderness and you found an innocent little deer, Bambi, running across the creek, and your kids are starving and they're freezing. You wouldn't go after that deer, my friend, and slaughter that deer in the face?
Hell yeah.
So what are you talking about? You think that God the Father, hold on, you think God the Father didn't create this domain of hospitality for his children to roam the earth when you just said it earlier? This domain was created for us to a habitat. That means that there's hospitality and there's provisions within this realm that was given to us by the Heavenly Father for us to actually consume and eat. So if he had to consume an innocent creature to clothe Adam and Eve, he did it under the aspect of hospitality and taking care of his creation. So there's an understanding behind that. But God did not take
I get you. It's like the indigenous ways. Surely.
All right, then. So then, why we playing this silly game, then, Bridge?
No problem, my friend. I was just pointing it out, see where you were gonna go with it, and I can tell that you don't consider that a murder. No problem.
I don't
No
play
worries.
on the sand, Bridge.
So now we're gonna go with the flaming sword as the first murder.
And the funny thing is that your name is Bridge. I don't play on broken bridges either, bro. No.
Hey, let's talk about the fact that he said,
I like that.
the brother said,
What up, Beanie?
hey, what's up, brother, man? How you doing, brother?
What's up, man? What's up? Yeah, we chilling, bro. Chilling, discussing. Look, we just discussing, y'all. Okay?
It's all love.
It's just a discussion. Ain't no. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, of course.
It's all. You know what I mean? Yeah. We just sharing viewpoints. Now, hold up. Now, the Father from the beginning. Clearly, I brought that scripture with John 8:44.
No,
Clearly, I can bring that.
The word
Father
beginning.
from the beginning, y'all.
Hold on.
The beginning was Genesis 1:1.
Bridge, we got to look at the fact of why the sword.
No, I got that connection. Come on now.
Bridge, real quick, brother. Let me just say this real quick, Bridge. You are saying that the devil is Jesus or God. The sword was put there. It isn't a murder weapon. The sword was put there to stop Adam and Eve from going back into the garden because they were expelled from the garden because they disobeyed what God told them not to do. So that sword was put there because of the fact that they disobeyed. And because when they disobeyed, they became sinful they had the inclination to sin. Not original sin. I don't per se hold to original sin, but the flesh became so weak that it started to promote in itself the sinful nature, the lust of life. So yeah, that time he said he was going to put the flaming sword there, so them being in that sinful fallen nature wouldn't be able to eat from the tree of life and live forever and ever. So that's the point of why the sword was put there, to block them from going back into the Garden of Eden.
Facts. Because he didn't want them to live forever. Facts. That would have been after effect.
Because there were sinful people.
Yeah, we on the same page with that. We on the same page.
Yes, but hear me out on this. They were sinful, fallen creatures. When God made everything, he said it was good. When Adam ate that fruit with Eve, they fell and they became moral or frail people. So God doesn't want them to be frail people living forever. He wants them to be how he created them, living forever.
Yo, here's the thing. If y'all want to destroy my doctrine, and I would like to see it happen, really, I would applaud anybody that can destroy it. Hold up. If y'all could destroy my doctrine, let me tell you the target. All you got to do is prove that the devil didn't lie and said that he was God.
That's the point I wanted to make.
That's the biggest truth.
Bring those scriptures. Go ahead.
You said the first. All right, let me get it. The first one you said is that the first lie was something, but that was not the first lie which you mentioned. The first lie that's mentioned in the Bible is where Satan tells them, "You shall not surely die." That was the first lie.
But what was my claim though? My claim is that the devil lied and said he was God. So that is the first lie in the Bible. And that's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1.
Where's the devil speaking, saying, "I am God"?
He's speaking to the readers.
Where
Where's
Genesis? You can only do it on the John 8:44 connected with Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 connected to Genesis chapter 5.
So you got to scramble the whole operating system to create this lie.
And then from 3 verse 5 all the way down to 3 verse 7 where they became open and they knew that they were naked.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. They became like God to know good and evil.
They became frail. That's what happened.
Yeah.
They fell from their perfect good state.
Now, hold up.
Where they were itching to go against God.
Hold up. Now, ready? Now, we all agreeing so far with everything. Now, here we go.
No, we're not.
Here's the thing about it.
We're not.
Here's the thing. All right, hold up. Here's the thing about it. We see that Adam and Eve became like God after they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That means that they were not like God before. Why? Because they did not have the knowledge of good and evil. Simple.
The verse good, brother.
There you go, y'all.
Says,
Here's my breakdown.
be like God, knowing something. That's what the verse says. They will be like God, knowing something.
Like God, not as God. Because
No
they
problem.
were as
Like God, no problem, brother. I have no problem with that preposition. Like God, no problem.
Listen, when
No
God
problem, bro.
made man in
Like
his
God,
image and
yeah.
likeness,
They wasn't like God. Perfect.
No. When God made man in his image and likeness, man was as God on earth, my friend. As God. And now the difference is like. Do you know the difference in language?
Okay, yeah,
As
has
and
a like, no problem, yep.
All right, then we're clear. That's all.
Yep. And like God, now they're like God. Why? Because God also has the knowledge of good and evil.
But you ain't God.
Now,
But you ain't God
they
no
have
more.
the same knowledge that God
But
has.
you ain't God. But you ain't. But you are not.
And the eyes are open like God's
It's
are
a
open.
former state. No. It's a former state of being. As and like, there's a disformation.
Yep, and I'm addressing the like only right now, not the as.
Prior to the fall, right? So prior to the fall, they were perfect. So there was no evil in their understanding.
As God.
Perfect means that they did not have the knowledge of good, my friend.
The only thing they learned was evil. When they ate the fruit, all they learned was evil.
Wait, hold on. Is that a tree of both good and evil or just evil?
Their whole environment, everything about them was good.
It's both
So
good
as they
and
ate
evil.
that fruit, all they learned, the only knowledge they really gained, was evil inclinations to sin.
Disobedience.
Facts.
Now, here's the thing about it. And a lot of people, they seem to miss this point, but I don't know. I'm gonna point it out real quick. Talking about the before and after. So before, Adam did not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Fact number one, undebatable. That Adam, at one time, he did not eat from that tree of knowledge of good and evil. At one time, Eve did not eat from that tree of knowledge of good and evil. They did not eat from that tree yet. So that was that before, you know what I'm saying?
Were they good at that moment when they didn't eat of that fruit? Were they still in perfect unity with God?
They did not know. I don't know. You know what? That's a good question, and I would answer it with the scripture saying that they did not have the knowledge of good. That's the first point. So to say that they couldn't even say if their God was good or evil, my friend.
He had everything installed when he created them, and everything
Specifically addressed.
Look. So God created something perfectly good. Everything inherently would be good.
Specifically addressing the knowledge. Just stick with the knowledge, like that verse that says, "My people perish for the lack of knowledge." Let's focus on that knowledge point right now. To learn something new. If you learn today, right now, you learned about the knowledge of good and evil. That means you didn't have that knowledge of both good and evil prior to learning it right now.
Yeah, I don't have to be on stage for the game to tell you.
You're everywhere. You're nowhere. You're everywhere, and you're nowhere. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Now you know it's nowhere and everywhere. Just
That's the first point.
The knowledge of good and evil.
Huh?
I like your username, Dos Maga.
Thank you, Anas.
Nice to meet you, brother. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I don't need to ask you, brother. You can say, I'll keep it respectful. Yes, you support Israel.
So how can you?
You can do evil too.
Only if you obtain the knowledge of evil also. So both.
Look at this.
All Alright, so then who gave them the knowledge of evil?
Perfect,
The
Bridge.
serpent.
Everything was
Who
created
gave, wait, hold up, this is a great question.
from the
Who
beginning.
gave Adam and Eve the knowledge of evil? Who did
The
that?
serpent.
Satan.
Excuse me? They ate from the fruit that gave them the power
No,
of evil.
it was their choice who gave them that, because when they obeyed the serpent,
That fruit,
they
my
disobeyed
friend, as
God.
soon as they ate it, they obtained the knowledge of
Right.
evil. Who
As soon as-
created that fruit?
as
Gave the
soon as
knowledge
they
of evil.
made-
I'm going to
obviously,
show that to my
listen.
teacher.
All right, look, Rich, if your children, you put a cookie on the table. You tell your children, don't eat that cookie, because if you eat it, you will get ill. Don't eat that cookie. And then here comes next door neighbor kid and says, "Hey, are you really gonna get ill if you eat that cookie? You've never eaten a cookie. How about you give it a bite? How do you know? Hold on.
Ill. You shall
Yeah.
not surely get ill off that cookie.
Right. And then at that moment, your kids have a choice. So you know what they have the knowledge of? Good and evil. But how do they know? See, they don't know whether or not it's true until they experience the choice. They experience the choice of going against what God had said already. And here's the difference. See, when God speaks, we don't see it. Because when Abraham received the word by faith. He didn't see the word, but he kept the faith as he had seen the invisible one. See, the difference is that Adam heard the voice of God, who told him not to do a certain thing. He passed that word on to his wife, and guess what his wife did? She went to prove whether or not what her husband had said was what God really said. We see this in everyday life. Did God really say that to you? The questioning part, the curiosity was that opened up that choice for her to go, because in her desire, it says that she saw the fruit was good and pleasant to the eye and good for food. So in her was the desire to actually touch it. What promoted the desire was that misunderstanding, that falsehood that the serpent spilled to her, and she took it as the truth when she already had the truth. The difference between knowledge of good and evil is that one thing could be true or not at the same time. The truth is permanent. What God spoke was permanent. What the serpent said was partial. So then you have to understand which fruit is which now. See, the fruit that she ate from the beginning was eternal life, which was the word. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded from the mouth of God. So while they had that word in them, they were going to live not only by the fruit they were eating, but by the word that was sustaining them. When they made that choice to go against that word had to be fulfilled. Surely the day that you eat from it, you shall surely die. And that took effect when they made the choice. At that moment, they knew now for a fact that when God speaks, he ain't joking. Now they have the knowledge of good and evil, of their own choices.
Yo, Beanie. Yo, that was Beanie talking, right? Or Kevin?
No.
Which one was that?
Elvino.
Albino?
Brother, why do you want to call me, man? It's me.
Yeah, Kevin. I know you talking, right? My bad, man. I was like, y'all both, I thought y'all both mic was off, so I was like, which one was that? Okay. Yo, check it out. So, alright, so here's the thing. Again, if I create a tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you eat that fruit, as soon as you eat that fruit that I created, you obtain the knowledge of good and evil from that fruit. How did they learn about evil? They ate the fruit.
By choice.
That's the literal interpretation.
By choice, Bridge. Choice.
Bro, choice or no choice.
Free will.
If the little boy was walking through the backwoods, right, and you said, go pick the spinach, but he grabbed the poison ivy.
Choice.
Right?
Choice.
That's a choice, right?
If we build
That's
a
a choice.
fire to keep us warm,
You see what I'm saying? So they had a
build
choice.
a fire, Bridge. If we build a fire to keep us warm through the nights, and we'd say, don't touch the fire because you will get burned, and you would have bubbles and blisters and all these things. And you decide that, okay, I'm not going to do it, but then somebody else come and said, you shall not get bubbles and blisters and boils. If you touch the fire, you should touch it and see what happens.
Yes,
If you touch it,
Yep, that's
if you
right.
touch it, listen.
You touch it, you get burned.
And
First degree.
And if you touch it, Bridge, is it your fault or is it God's fault for making the fire?
It's my
Whose
fault.
fault is it, Bridge? It's your fault, exactly, my friend.
Accountability.
It's my fault, but at the same time, that I would like to state for the record that was a great breakdown. But we're not talking about fire, though. When it comes to the tree of knowledge, we're talking about knowledge.
Bridge,
The
don't play
opposite
games. It's
of
the
the word
principle.
knowledge is the word ignorance. So if you are anti-knowledge, you would say
Any parable fits into that equation.
Don't
Any
do that.
parable fits into that
That's like
equation.
a bad thing to say.
Listen,
Whoever
any
says
parable
that,
fits into that
like, I
equation.
don't want you to know what
If you
people
jump in deep waters
I don't
without a
want
life
you to know.
jacket, you may
You see
potentially
what I'm
die.
going?
Don't do that, Bridge. You're using this argument against the principle. You're arguing against the beginning. That's what you're arguing. The principle is in the beginning. The principle is choice. Okay, that's the principle. Now, if you fail at that principle, it is your choice to fail at the principle, because any example fits into that paradigm. Because the example that I gave about the kids eating the cookie that was maybe filled with poison and will make them ill, they still made that choice. The principle fits, Bridge. You're using a circular argument to try to bypass the point that's already established.
I know why you're bringing up that point, because you want to focus on one word, and that word is disobedience, correct?
Listen, it's not my focus. It is
But that's your main focus, right? He's talking about the disobedience. That's your whole reason.
You're making the choice to bypass what you already understand. You understand that it is the disobedience. You understand that it's choice.
And he's negating the fact. He's negating the fact that they disobeyed to say it's God's fault.
Right. I think the red Bible, that was the light's fault.
Hold up, y'all. Remember, y'all keep saying that this is God talking to them in the garden. But I'm here to tell you that Adam and Eve, they have no knowledge of good and evil yet, right? And they don't know if that's good talking to them or if that's evil talking to them.
They sure as hell found out.
That right there is what y'all
They found out, didn't they?
gotta check that.
They answered around and found out real quick.
With God. Adam used to be in communion with God in the garden. So he knows
Adam was in communion with somebody that he did not know was good or evil yet, because he did not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil yet. That's the before and after doctrine.
That's not.
Hell yeah, that's a fire doctrine right there that I'm bringing y'all. That is right there, 5-star. What is that?
Nah, Bruce.
They gonna put that in the Smithsonian Institute on the wall, in the gold plaque, all that.
Man. You the type of dude who plays around with the knowledge.
No, serious, man.
What other people think.
Serious, man. Serious,
you're not
bro.
serious, Bridge.
Do we both agree that knowledge is off limits? Do we both agree with that?
Bridge, it's like me telling my kids that the boogeyman exists, and I want to see them running around frantic and scared. That's all you're doing, man. Yeah,
yo, listen. Do we agree that the word knowledge, right, is something that is off limits? That the reason why God said, example, if God said,
there's no if in God. There's no
if Adam and Eve never ate from the tree of knowledge, they would have been ignorant, right? They would have remained ignorant, and they wouldn't have been like God. Do you agree?
With your mission of what you believe. But if you are wrong or in error, then it gives you an opportunity to readjust. Either way, you win. And what I see is that these kids are terrified of allowing for their beliefs to be scrutinized. That's all I wanted to say. I think we need to bring that back.
Because they turn into little one-dimensional demons. That's what it comes down to, Pink Pill. They turn into, and I'm not talking about anybody's child in this room, okay? I'm talking about the radical, liberal, kids that were out there protesting, blowing shit up, throwing bricks through Teslas and stuff like that. Despite both of the problems that you guys are experiencing with your children, I can say that you're decent people and probably raised children who would not get to that point. But as far as that generation, they're freaking evil. Like, it's gotten to the point where they have no problem. Did you see that video, Jay, of that reporter where she was talking about abortion? I think it was in New York. And the girl got...
YouTube video on it.
Yeah, she literally punched that girl in the face and bloodied up her face just because they had a disagreement. That is what I'm talking about. They become very demonic, very violent, and very entitled. And I don't think that anybody's saying that word out loud. It's the entitlement. Have you guys seen what's happening in San Francisco? The world's largest Bloomingdale closing their stores. Why? Because of all the crime, the robbing, and the looting. Meanwhile, you have people in California trying to take our guns. I'm sorry. Some of y'all have raised children, you've bonded, and all this stuff, but when they become young adults and they're running up in and out of freaking department stores, knocking people over and stealing people's shit, I'm sorry. Some of them need to catch a bullet.
Yeah, that's true. I can't. I live in California. I live in Orange County. We're way different than LA as far as our how we process.
I'm from Orange County, born and raised, and I now live in LA.
Nice. We'll move back. But either way, but good to see you, brother. But either way, yeah, man. Parenting. I'm a 13-year-old kid. Man, this shit is crazy. There's really no handbook. My mom went to a Jesuit university, Fordham University. And she is, dude, I try to parent my son like my mom parented me. I'm married, but I'm the father. And, dude, these kids, and I'm not talking shit about kids, but I'm going to talk shit about kids. They're fucking weak, dude. They're weak as fuck. This social media bullshit that most of them watch, because I'm a coach as well. And so I love kids. I'm with them, spend a lot of time with them. It's just like their brains work. So what we did is like you have to institute some sort of spiritual philosophy. Sorry, Steve. And these kids render it because there's a moral declination within the school system. I mean, they don't even teach.
Hey guys. Alan, I got you. Give me a second. I just want to ask you.
Sure.
One quick question. Keith, what sport do you teach?
Football. I'm a former Division I football player.
Oh, nice. So would you have an issue with a female quarterback?
My brother is the head coach for modern day girls flag football. They have girls football.
No. I'm talking about girls playing in boys football because boys shouldn't be playing in girls sports and girls shouldn't be playing in boys sports.
No. Let a girl play boys football. She's gonna get completely fucking crushed, and then she'll want to play with the girls.
Thank you, Alan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say to Pink and the other kids who have teenagers, parents who got teenagers. I know it's difficult. I'm still dealing with it. But it is helpful to remind them. And Pink, you were saying you don't know what to say. Try this. I am your mother. I've lived longer than you. I've experienced more life than you. And I've made more sacrifices than you will ever know. And no matter how long you live, I will still have lived longer than you. So I will say and do whatever I need to do to raise you properly. That's number one. Number two, if I think you're thinking in the wrong way and you're thinking in a way that will not enable you to be a successful adult, because remember, our whole job is to get them from the day they're born to the day they turn 21 or 22. It's to get them to be successful adults. So if I see you doing something that is not going to produce that result, not only am I going to tell you, you are going to stop doing it. Because when you become an adult, nobody's going to care about your feelings. Nobody is going to give you any breaks. And you got to get out into the world and you got to make it on your own. So if you're interested in how you're going to do that, you're going to listen to me because I care about you and I'll still be there when you make a mistake, but no one else will be. Now that's me thinking off the top of my head. But again, the main point is you're a kid, I'm an adult, I know what you need to do to be an adult, and you better listen to me because I'm your parent. So that's my...
They're going to say that's boomer talk. It's too late. Like for me, we grew up in Temecula.
How old is she?
She's 27. She goes
okay. All right.
So she got brainwashed during COVID. She was going to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, in Manhattan.
Oh,
one of the top 10 schools, but you know the type of people who are there. So it wasn't that she was taught this. This was not, she had the fundamentals. She grew up in Temecula. It's a red city and a blue city.
Yeah, the whole county's red, pretty much. Riverside. It's pretty...
Okay,
I'm more angry that literally kidnapped my kid's brain. She's supposed to be learning fashion design. Didn't learn that, but then is now an activist. So thank you, FIT, for having us throw $60,000, $30,000 a year away, so that we can have this terrible relationship with our daughter where we're walking on eggshells. I'm so I'm so angry.
You should be angry, but let me ask you a question respectfully. Because I'm in New York City, right? And I hate Manhattan. Manhattan is Zoof. But you didn't, as a parent, you didn't see signs of this coming as she was there. I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, she's an artist, and she's always artists kind of just think differently anyway. And no, I mean, she was typical. I mean, she never participated in literally no politics at all. Never was activist. Never even spoke about this stuff when she was at home. We just didn't, just was not talking.
Well, let me ask you a question. Hold on, everybody, hold on, please. Let me ask you a question, Pink, and then I want to go to Joseph. Oh, she's on the phone. Joseph, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's important for a lot of people in what's her name, the Crystalline's position to remember that, like, what I feel like is what motivates kids or draws them to these activist groups. It's a way for them to try to feel some sort of, like, I believe it's a way for them to try to feel some sort of connection to other people socially. It's like it's a social contagion.
Joseph, it's like a cult.
Yeah, exactly.
Social credit score.
Yeah, you know what? It's like, you guys remember in college, I used to have those churches that would recruit vulnerable people. It'd be those hotel churches. They had that when I was in college. Would they try to recruit you?
I remember,
and let you to be part of their church? This is like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's absolutely, it's indoctrination. But you have to remember that, like, they're going to be experiencing, the effects that indoctrination is going to end up having in their life as well. Because it's the ways in which that radicalism is hurting the way that they relate to other people. They're going to experience the karmic kickback on that as well eventually. And eventually it might just be hopefully a phase that they go through where they have to fucking learn that, because it's only a matter of time when you hear stories about it all over the internet about people who join these radicalist, cult-like groups, and then it's only a matter of time before they end up getting devoured by that group. Because that's just the way that these people think. They're jackals.
Well, Keith, hold on. My children, and I'm sure Pink will fill in. I got you, CEO. Pink will fill us in. My children are my life, right? I'm never going to give up on them. But one thing I never really wrapped my brain around as I was raising my children was the taste of disappointment that your children are going to bring you, right? Children, you're setting yourself up for failure if you think your kid's always going to be successful. But that disappointment, man, that stings a little differently when it's your kids. CEO?
I think a parent
Joseph, hold on, Joseph. Get CEO.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a few points to interject and for the discussion based on some few things you said. The first part is the parenting. With the way that you guys describe the children of today, somebody said these demonic, devilish, basically hoodlum thieves. It's really interesting to hear all the descriptions of the young kids and what they do. Like these kids are the worst kids in the history of the universe. So in the spirit of not being victims, as we discuss in politics all the time, I just don't think we should be parental victims. Whereas we need to be responsible adults. And by waiting for
Hip-hop stand up, man. Hip-hop stand up, man. That shit just had me get a little moment, man. I heard that song and it made me think, like, wow, everybody got their own special move, my nigga. Like, when I heard that song, I'm like, damn, this shit is dope. And this shit make us more elite hip-hop listeners. That we can hear Fem, we can hear Hov, we hear all these different styles. And I can appreciate Bill. I'm like, damn, I can't do that. But he can. And I know that, nigga. So I think that's dope. I think that's I don't know why I thought about that. That's fire. Alright, yeah, but we gonna keep it going, man. We gonna get that nigga kid to talk to him, man. That was dope, man. That's our little baby. Got our special move, man. Yeah, I know the special moves is important, man. I ain't gonna lie, that shit was dope, man. Different ways. I'll take you different realms of hip hop. And I appreciate that shit from the little card and all that shit. Make me a real dope listener. Make my pen better, and I can attack different beats. And let's just.
Where though? Like which state?
PA.
That's awesome. I was in New York for a very long time. Now I'm in Florida.
Nice. Where in Florida? You don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. Jacksonville.
Oh, okay. Disneyland.
Kind of. No, that's Orlando.
Jacksonville landed the Gators, huh?
Yes, they did. They won the other night. They won.
All right. Thank you, Bartini. Let's give chance to the comedy, yeah.
Why you cut her off like that?
Yeah, free Palestine from Hamas and liberate all worlds and all lands from all Islamic terrorists. I am complete.
Okay, where are you from, comedy?
I was born inside Uranus.
Which language do you speak?
I speak all languages.
Which language? What's your mother language? I mean, your ethnicity. Your mother language.
You want to know about my mom?
No, your mother language. I mean, how can I say it?
Your main language.
Your main language.
Comedy.
Well, how to say comedy 1 to 5? Because we want to know.
Comedy 1 through 5. That's how you say it. They kicked me.
Have the knowledge yet of good and evil. That they did not know if that was the devil talking to them in the garden.
They did
because they did not have the knowledge of evil. And there you go.
It was a serpent.
They didn't know what evil.
Not a parent. You don't know what you're talking about. You're only expecting.
You don't fucking live with me. You're a stranger on the fucking internet.
Hey, bro, look, and more the reason why you shouldn't lose your shit, right? I mean, where is your emotional intelligence right now?
Because again, when that shit went to my fucking windshield, it was a dumbass parent like you saying some stupid shit without understanding anybody's fucking household as opposed to taking accountability. Take fucking accountability. You sound like one of them lazy ass passing the buck parents. That may be the fucking problem.
Okay, great. And you yelling at like 10 decimals really got your point across. Good job, dude. Everyone give him a round of applause. Either way, I'll go ahead and listen to CO and then I'll wait for my turn.
Oh, let me pivot from that point real quick. So just I'll just make 2 points instead of 3. I just was going to caution the room about something that I've noticed evolve over the past several political cycles with regards to what I look at as some external forces trying to destabilize the United States. We've gotten into this era where there's not even an aspiration of bipartisanship, right? That we live in a world different than, I'm 54 years old or whatever it's worth. I just never seen the United States as contentious in the past few decades as it has been in the past couple of political cycles, where it's these radical left liberals and the MAGA maggot, racists, and there's a nonstop perennial 24-hour cycle between these sites and news where everybody's just talking at each other. There's not even a, hey, let's put this healthcare plan together. Hey, what do you like? You like this? You like that? Or hey, do you like taxes for this bracket or that bracket? It's usually about character and style and who you can drink beer with and who's the toughest person and a bunch of silliness about who's radical this and wokeism. Yeah.
So can I have a dialogue with you respectfully, sir?
Yeah, for sure.
So, you don't have to answer any of my questions, obviously. What party are you affiliated with? I'm a Democrat.
Let's just go with Democrat.
All right, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I don't say that proudly, by the way.
Yeah, and JD, you didn't hear the beginning of the conversation. Why would you say we live in my point was, JD, we live in a world now where everybody paints the other party with a brush. Oh, you're this or you're that, and we're at war. I just said at least before, JB, that there used to be an aspirational goal at the very minimum for something to work bipartisan in some regard. But now there's a constant perennial war of words and attacking one another. And it's not really, in my humble opinion, the best of who we are as a country.
Listen, sir, I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I said to Alan earlier, I was like, listen, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I'm calling them to the carpet. Do you know how much smoke I get from friends that are Democrats because I say they're wrong? And what I said to Alan was, how do we get past the problem unless we discuss the problem civilly with open minds? Listen, I gotta be honest, if you're a good dude, I don't care if you're Democrat, Independent, it don't matter to me. I'll roll with you. But we've gotten into this rhetoric in this country of labeling everything and everybody, and I don't want to do labels anymore, sir. I just want to, who are you? What do you bring to the table? Joseph, hold on, please.
All right.
I want to have that dialogue. I want to have, how do we fix it instead of complaining about it constantly? I find that the Democratic Party has become the party of complainers and deflectors. So,
yeah, but even with that, if I could, I would challenge you on that. I think there's a lot of complaining and deflecting on both sides, for whatever that's worth. I hate using the word both sides. But Trump has always positioned himself as a victim of everything, right? So, and you hear that voice. So I think, to me, it's disingenuous to say it's a Democratic exclusive phenomena to complain about stuff. Politics is the area where you're complaining because you're talking about what are you doing to repair and fix the challenges with the community, the country, and the government. So that's where you're supposed to complain when we're having political conversations. So my issue isn't the complaints. It's the fact that the ad hominem that acts on character and people and groups.
You said something. You said, I'm sorry for jumping in, but I like the dialogue.
There seems to be a problem which is
you said something earlier that I really agree with.
How do you see
when you
AI
said,
conversion with
where's the responsibility lie with the parents, right? That's why I asked, especially the pink pill, I asked her, I said, did you not notice what was going on with your child while the child was going through this thing? I own what is running with my son. I own it. I know my muscles. But we sitting down, exactly what I just said, who the one for me was there with I didn't let him go experience the world.
I'm just trying to become a big content creator one day, but I got no supporters. So if you have the chance, please subscribe.
You gotta let your kids fall. Here's my opinion. It's just my opinion. We're not parents, bro.
Please don't.
We're tour guides. You can tell your kid, you go down this road, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go down this road, this is what's going to happen. But you got to let them pick their own roads. And when they fall on those roads, as the parent or guide, you're going to be there to pick them up. You got to let them. They're going to learn more from your mistakes than their successes. It's the truth.
I would just add
Instead of what can you give me?
where we
Give me. I always think about it like my child. And as a parent, when my child comes to me, so grateful for
the evolution of the challenges that this generation of kids have to deal with, man. We didn't have multiple worlds of social media that we had to contend with and all these emotionalities. And, to be honest with you, the threat of having to be introduced to, GSAs and stuff in middle schools that these kids have to deal with. I just think they have a lot more problems and challenges that we did.
They kicked me. That's pathetic.
That this new generation that's rising is going to receive this knowledge. Do you understand? This knowledge of how this world currently is. They're going to believe that this is the truth. And it's mostly falsehood. And those people who have been on earth long enough, right? We get mad at the Rothschilds and whoever else, these families 13 families who run the world, right? Because they have the knowledge of good and evil. they're subjecting us, right, under this covenant, whatever the covenant they made, to try to hold humanity at ransom. Okay, and this is why we need to do what we do, because this scripture testifies of that one who came in his Father's name and stood against the powers to be, and that's the ones whose name is Jesus Christ. And if we live by his example, we're gonna go to the brokenhearted, like I said in the beginning, to the weary, to the orphans, to the widows, to those who are incarcerated wrongly, and need this word of redemption for their soul as a lost sheep, as the one who left the 99 to go find the one. That is the duty of us who are spiritual beings and not carnal beings. There's two kinds of people in this world: those who are born of the spirit and those who are born of the flesh. And we have to decide which side of the spectrum we stand on, and that's why this word gives us the light to walk through the valleys of the shadow of death. This word gives us light, is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. Because some of us are not from this realm. Some of us come from a higher dimension, and we're embodied in this world through a word called redemption, and that word allows us to operate, to redeem those who need redemption, who need this word of redemption through the Son who fulfilled all things written. That's why we have to do what we have to do.
All right, thank you very much for your viewpoint. And I would like to ask the woman who asked the question. I always say that usually whether a man or woman that asks a question, they already know the answer to their own question. They just want to hear the answer coming from other people to see if they can add to their answer. That's how it usually works with the psychology. But at the same time, Monette, respectfully, do you mind giving your answer?
Hallelujah. Yes, I do. And all praises to the divine.
Also, take your food
like
with the
Vino said, we are spiritual beings. And we are born into this world neither good nor bad, but we are programmed. Even religion itself is a program. It's an idea inspired by the divine, which is all. We are on a journey, each and every one of us, to collect data through experience. And that is why we do not shun anybody for their beliefs, because it is through experience that we gain the wisdom and the knowledge that is needed to leave this realm. I believe that we should not base our reality off of a single book, because wisdom, she has her part in all people. What I mean is that we can learn from every walk of life, every person. We can take what is needed and leave the rest behind. Even the Bible, all of this knowledge is not useful for the time. It takes you being in a particular place at a particular time to perceive the words that were written in its necessity. When I say we should not base our reality off of words that were inspired by the divine, what I mean is, it's the story of Adam and Eve, right? None of us were there. We don't know how it went down. All we can do is pray and ask the highest intelligence. What is needed for me to learn through this apple?
Watermelon, it turns out like this, but this girl doesn't believe the video at all, so she also
So
brings
that
a
we can
watermelon to
take
test
what
it.
we
She
need
cuts it
so
from the
that it
top
may
and brings a
equip
machine,
us
places
for
it
the
on the
rest of this
watermelon, wears
life.
gloves, and also puts on glasses.
That is
After
why
that, she
I
changes her
asked, should
clothes,
we
and as soon
base
as
our
she starts rubbing
reality
the
off
watermelon,
of
something
a
happens that she
word or
wouldn't
a
expect.
book
Before
that was
watching, there's
written
a choice. On
by
one side is a
others?
mother, and on the other side is money.
Because I believe, and I'm not saying that none of you people are religious in here, because I actually just fell into this room. I'm not sure, but basically, to me, I'm going to digress here soon. Religion is a trap. It's a trap to keep our minds limited. And the Messiah, the one that we call Jesus, like Calvino said, he is an example of the life that we should live in order to make it out of this place. Because earth is a trap. It's a trap. And it's only those with the mind of Christ that will be able to break free from this trap.
Love you. Happy birthday. I love you.
And I agree that outside of speculation, I understand. It's outside of speculation. It's what's affirmative. And the reason that we have this manuscript is for that very reason of experience. We can see human behavior in contrast, right? Of good and evil. We can see it. We can see the good, the bad, the ugly, down the left and right. We can see the spectrum of humanity in this manuscript. So we can definitely go into the different realms, the different ideologies and spectrums of beliefs. However, any argument found currently, presently, 2025, has already taken place over and over and over and over. We know this. There's nothing new under the sun. So this, like you said, is a level of transcendence in the understanding that is provided by that which has already allowed us to exist, that allows us to then maneuver and navigate through this realm of darkness. Because you said it, this world has become a trap. The earth is not a trap. It is the world. It is the system. It's not just like earth. There's a system in which people perceive that the system is the thing to attain, and there's a higher thing to attain, which is salvation and the kingdom of heaven. It says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It means that we have to understand that the things that we can talk and correct, we have to lay them down and turn back the opposite way. So when they tell us to go right, we should go left. When they say go left, we should go right. Because they're telling us the opposite. Just like we talked about now, this is the reason we have this manuscript. The opposite was, do not do what God said. That is the opposite. Or did God really say to do this, that is the and you can't do this, that and the third, because you have to make a choice. And that choice has an exchange in the value, and it's contractual. And I'm going to read it, the temptation of Jesus. Contractual. Turn these stones into bread. Man shall not live on all my bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. That's contractual. Bow down and worship me, and I shall give you all the kingdoms of the world. That's contractual. You shall worship God, your God, and your God alone. Right? No one else. Then the scriptures are used. Where it is written that if you shall fall just from this ledge, it is written that he shall send his angels so that your feet does not stumble upon stone. And the counterfeit was, it is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. That's why we have this, because this book is not just a book. It is spiritually inspired, and that spirit is what we use to wrestle against, not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, like I said earlier, the rulers and the governors of the higher realms. That's why we have this scripture, because it is the sword of the spirit that gives us the understanding, the wisdom, the understanding that you said, sister, can be extracted. It is not solely there, but it can be extracted from there. Just like when you get a cup of water, it doesn't mean that you have the entire spectrum of the ocean in your hands, but you have a source to reference. And the source that we reference is the Spirit of God. Which Jesus told us, it is not I who do these works, but my Father who is in me. And that's the reference that we should always use, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, outside of the spectrum of religion, which you're right, woman. I appreciate you.
This man is going to kick this ball as far as he can off this skyscraper since his friends bet him $100 he wouldn't do it, but it did not go as planned.
Emilio is currently going viral on TikTok.
I believe they came from. You go back to your seat. I believe whenever the Tower of Babel fell.
Thank you so much.
And they had their own languages, and they had their own tongues.
Thank you so much.
Tongues is language, but they had their own languages, they had their belief system. They all had the same belief system.
Thank you so much.
What was the belief system they had?
Do you want to win one of these?
Hold up. Was it Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz? Hold up. A father, a mother, and a son God concept? Oh, why do we see all these things like occurring? Yeah. So we see there is a trinity that is presented to that is antithetical to the Father, Son, and Spirit. So I agree 1,000. I do believe as well that all religions came from Babylon, be it all these different religions, be it ancient Egyptian beliefs and all these different things. I believe they came from one source. But yeah,
ordered the same burger every day for 3 years. When the employees discovered why, they called the police. Emily started working at McDonald's, and every day there was a guy who called and ordered a medium-sized cheeseburger. His name was David.
Where we feel at, where we see some that is strong according to the scriptures. Like even in the story of Joseph, you see Joseph, he was basically kidnapped by the brothers and thrown into a well. And it was so as a slave. And when he became the greatest person under Pharaoh. So I think these stories are so much allegorical. I think there might be some somewhere, but when we look at Genesis, if we look at Genesis and it speaks of a massive flood, and we see the ancient accounts of massive floods throughout the world, not only in Christianity, then possibly there's some relevance to this. But then we look at the Grand Canyon and we see a massive amount of water and erosion occurring, wind erosion. So water erosion and wind erosion occurring. There has to be more than what we are just taking at face value. Are these stories actually allegorical, or could this have possibly been true?
You automatically go into degraded degradation.
Fucking concealer, you fucking cunt.
So is your mother.
Yo, fuck
you. How about that? Anyways, sorry about that. I shouldn't have did that. Whatever. I'm just totally triggered. Anyways. Yeah. So who said that? Ethan?
No. Jay said that.
Okay, because Jay's already in the audience. No, I'm talking about.
No.
Okay, so Sheila, what I have a problem with is that instead of being inquisitive and inquiring about what we believe. All right, Melissa. Everybody that interrupts me while I'm talking is going in the audience for time. Sorry. Next person to do it is going to go on.
A little bit off subject, but
I
I'm
do
going to say
have
it
a
anyway.
problem with Sheila.
We're talking about the rhetoric and the bile and politics. There's like 75, 80 people in here. We start talking like real people and real problems. Like 40 people walk out the door. Nobody wants to have that conversation. It's amazing to me. They'll watch the car crash, but they won't participate in the real conversations.
No one wants nuance or intelligent conversations on this app. They want people yelling obscenities to each other. Like that's entertainment, sadly. More nuanced the conversation, the smaller the room.
I think it's a sign of everything you guys are talking about, a sign of the time. Just the way media is set up right now. Everything is about content production, train wrecks win, and they want to see the argument, the contention, and the yelling. That's why you see people jumping on the platform yelling and not having respectable dialogue. I think that's a part of why kids are doing what they're doing. And if I could speak to what Holly said really quick, Holly, you said, is there a lack of some version of parenting in households or a lack of voices saying X, Y, and Z? I think it's the opposite. I think there are too many voices. Because if you could think about it, hey, the guy that was on earlier, he said Master Splinter, so I know he was raised in the 80s because he's talking about Teenage Ninja Turtles. I'm 54. So I watched Super Friends and Shazam. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But the point I'm making is that the media that these kids are ingesting now is just so different than what we had to look at. Our parents, if there was somebody around the block that you knew was bad news, parents said, oh no, you can't go over there. I know John's mama and his grandmama, and they ain't shit. You can't go over there, right? But nowadays, and I think somebody else referred to it, I don't know if it was Alan or Keith, but referring to, we don't have a fence or a wall to put up on the internet. These kids literally have so many competing perspectives and thoughts and debauchery that they're intaking, and these young kids don't have the filter to be able to sort through that stuff. For us, we're out riding bikes and playing hopscotch, and we go to church here, and we're reading whatever's in Encyclopedia Britannica. But these kids have an information overload, and they just don't know what or who to believe. And the media back then, if somebody even kissed on a TV show, it was a big deal. Now, all kinds of things are possible. So I just
Well,
land
see,
here. I'm gonna land here, JP. I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say, with the amount of information that these kids have to filter through to figure out what's right and wrong, I think it's overwhelming for them, man.
I agree with you, understand, Alan. I got you. Give me a second.
Sure.
So it was about maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, right? Alan, I just got to meet you up because I get feedback. Sorry. TikTok is raising our kids. We were the latchkey kids, CEO. These are the TikTok kids. And this young person went on TikTok and put up a video of Osama bin Laden's manifesto. And bro, this shit blew up like a birthday cake. It was crazy. How many American kids are sitting there crying, saying Osama bin Laden's a hero. He stood up against the war machine of America. And I gotta tell you, bro, seriously, man to man, that's what when I saw that, I said, we're fucked. This generation's fucked.
Hold on. Yeah, because CEO was mentioning a point that I think tangentially, I don't know how much of the responsibility comes back to the parents. I think a lot of parents today are just ill-equipped to deal with how heavily the media infrastructure, like today's media, is optimized for revenue. Right? When you look at Gen X, look at millennials, right? These two generations lived through two different media renaissances. The technology was developed and deployed before the business cases really existed, right? I mean, kind of, sort of, with television. I mean, the business case existed, but you didn't, CNN charging people for subscriptions and then not deploying ads, right? Like they had nascent business models, right? And they were getting good information across because at least when Gen Xers were growing up, they had the FCC's, right? So they got exposed to tons of different views. I think one view sounded batshit. When it comes to level speaking, popping head on the TV, it sounds. It is this that. Shit crazy because you've already had access to a ton of information. You got some sense of media literacy as a result. And so then you hear some absolutely insane perspective and you're like, you know what, this is off the wall. I can't really buy this, right? And so Gen Xers, well prepared because they benefited from the fact that they weren't just siphoning down information from one source, every hour. And then millennials benefited from the growth before anybody really knew how to do anything with it, right? And so people were posting knowledge. People were altruistically sharing. Hackers every day weren't even hacking things for profit. They were doing it mostly just for for credibility, right? It's not credibility, like cred, right? Just to prove
the Lord of the Flies. You've all these pundits and politicians chasing him around the island. And you have people going to absolute vapors every time he talks about censorship or talks about Donald Trump. Really, this turned on Musk when he bought Twitter and took down the censorship system. But most importantly, when he released the Twitter files, because many of us were testifying in Congress.
Let me say this real quick. We as parents, thank God my kids are grown. For those of you who have younger kids, Keith, Holly, you got my sympathy. CEO Brian, please cash in your pink tickets. Join the house. Alan, the mic is yours.
Yeah, we all know how bad the internet is. And the solution is easy. It's not complicated. You close off all the social media. No TV, no phone, no computer. They will complain.
Immediately appeared, despite the fact that
I know that it's confusing. It is one thing to question the discussion. It wasn't discussion to make because people were holding violence. They were just trying to force something. But because this volatility went back and forth, I think there'll be a lot more muted future response to volatility in the market. So that removes a massive crutch
from Trump's ability to negotiate on the world stage. Because
You know,
it's important.
Okay, so I disagree with you. That is great points. Good to see you, Andre. I disagree strongly with the idea that we're going to have a reduction of volatility. So, two reasons. Like, one, like Trump has demonstrated that he's a pretty volatile president in second term. And then two, there's like great mathematician. I think it's the governor, like the fractal concept. Mandel Brump.
Those tools are easy to learn. It's not complicated. Learning how to use a computer is not complicated. Learning how to use a television is not complicated. There is nothing complicated about it. So the idea, they won't be able to compete. Guess what? They will be the ones telling other parents' kids what to do. Steve Jobs famously, in his criticism of Bill Gates, said, one of the things I got to give Bill Gates
United States. One of the reasons why Vietnam has such a huge trade deficit in the United States is Chinese run their shit through Vietnam the fake way. Okay, so shit that's made in China, like becomes made in Vietnam. And Vietnam Vietnam has like a growing capable manufacturing economy, but Vietnam also processes a lot of Chinese components and then exports to the United States. So for example, we manufacture plus animals in Vietnam, and not like some percentage of the fabric, some percentage of like the dyes and the noses. Depends on the animal. Because Vietnam, I think stuff. Are the components available for what you need? Are they present in Vietnam? This stuff gets shipped to the United States. Okay. After it's processed. So, alright, so now what is we throw 46% tariff on Vietnam. And then Vietnam is like, look, like, here, you can have everything you want in the United States. We'll import it at zero tariff. Because Vietnam's economy is very dependent on the deficit with China is like $500 billion, something like that. The deficit with Vietnam, which is a much smaller country than China, is $300 billion with the United States. So they're just like absolutely fucked by the United States. Okay, what is Vietnam? Sorry, to buy? I'll get to my.
He had nothing, but he used to read 2 or 3 books a week. We're talking like novel-sized books, and it was to the point where, come on, we got to get
because that would be outlandish.
That's how much you read.
Fantastic. I'm just not.
Well, that's true, and it was.
Can I put it? Yes, sir.
No, we didn't read by candlelight, JP. We read by the fires of the witches that we were
every year
for heresy.
In order to bridge that gap. So it's just like, it's not, Vietnam is like a very poor country. It's not like abundantly clear to me like how,
COVID hit, I had to get
what this trade deal actually accomplishes.
And then he was supposed to be
Vietnam trade is only $150 billion both ways. So it's both US and import and export to Vietnam is 150. Exports are 13. Imports are 136. So yeah, there's a $120 billion deficit, and I agree with you. You can't replace it with 400 francs. But there's many different.
Can I put a counter out there, Alan?
I think
China's was pretty bad.
China's it's like 150.
Okay, so I got that wrong. My point
their averages are kind of higher.
Yeah, so to your point,
we're presuming
that the trade deal will be the 46%. What Trump has done over the years to show very unique things. For example, the USMCA did a very consistent deal with Mexico to try and bring more car manufacturing to North America and try to push the car manufacturing from Mexico to the US. The question is, how do you do a win-win situation?
The biggest punishment I could give to one of my girls is probably just
as long as
I know we're different. You're right. We're different. But this is what I'm saying, right? Is that I think you can raise them with technology in a way that it's not bad. Right, like I once, because my girl's school has a policy that they can't use their phones at school, and they take them away, and it pisses
like super Luddite. I think they should be teaching them code, not taking away technology from them, right? And so I almost called the school to fucking bitch when they took away her phone one time. She got busted using AI in one of her projects, and they chewed her out. And I just was like disappointed that she got busted. You know what I mean? You talk about Steve Jobs. You talked about Steve Jobs. Hold on. You talked about Steve Jobs, right? And Bill Gates. These were kids who were obsessed with technology early on, and whose parents supported that. Right? Like, you name me the company that Bill Gates or Steve Jobs kids started. You can't, because they're not, remarkable. And Steve Jobs famously didn't let his kids have an iPad. You know what I mean? So I don't think of that.
But there was a difference too. I mean, I remember using those computers. When you used those computers, you were doing computing. Like, it wasn't like you went into those early computers and let me go on the internet. It was entering the numbers that represent the commands that will then run this program that will spit out prime numbers going up to 15 spaces. It wasn't, let's see the latest on TikTok of what the fashions are in Japan. The other thing I'll say, Jeremy, is that there is a difference between boys and girls. And I think with your daughters, and I have this more clearly, but with daughters, it's different than sons. And that and in any event, with the main thing which I started with is that you were able to effectively control their access. But I kept thinking early on, back in the days of AOL, yes, I was there when you had to dial up, and then when you were on AOL, no one could call you because you were using your phone line. They found out that being on the internet as little as 15 minutes a day caused depression.
Well, let me jump in here real quick, Alan. Keith, you gotta hold on, bro.
Yeah, let me say one more thing. But ask me the question first.
I don't have a question. I was gonna make a statement, okay?
Oh no, then make it. I don't want.
I was just gonna say AOL chat rooms were the precursor to Clubhouse. Remember?
I know. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I want to agree with you. Girls and boys are different. I believe, just from my lived experience, girls are better students. They're smarter when they're younger, and they have better drive than most boys.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm so glad I had girls and not boys. I will concede to that.
100% right about that. Alan, I just want to say, Alan, I absolutely love you. Listening to you.
Hey, here I am, Clubhouse Hero, Midlife Zero.
Wow. You're really making it, Scott. Late night clown house. Yay. You're doing it. You're making it big. You're going to be a podcaster. You're going to make it big in the podcast world.
Well, think about it, JB. I'm sitting here talking into my phone.
Nothing, chilling.
That's what we're doing right now.
Just ate some pizza. I shouldn't have eaten all that pizza.
Is there anything that can happen? Yeah, I might get pissed off sometimes. I might get happy sometimes. But what is really going to happen to me? And maybe
you're going to die, Alan. You're going to die like everybody else. We're all going to die.
Actually getting hurt by people in high school or getting into fights.
Well, before we get too far off the subject, I think Brian wanted to have a counterpoint with you. Brian?
So, I think I agree, Alan, with most of what you said. I especially agree in the context.
Jesus, what happened to your face?
Kids, kind of modern technology.
The more authoritarian he gets, the more beautiful you look.
Read the book, right? Like they understand at a high level, and even on a lower kind of theoretical level, cybersecurity, right? But they're missing basic computer literacy, right? Gen Z kids that are starting to look for internships and enter the workforce. That's something that my generation, and again, millennials and Gen X didn't really have a problem with. And I think it's largely because we've shifted away, you touched on this, right? We shifted away from creation devices being the primary devices to consumption devices, right? Like iPads. So if the primary mode of interaction with the information is to consume and not to create, right? And I guess creating, you know what I mean? I'll talk about TikToks, right? If that's the main change that's happened, then okay, well now you don't have kids who are learning how to build anymore in a way that's conducive to future innovation, right? And that's also my frustration with the idea that, hey, you know, why are we punishing kids for using AI to do assignments? Yeah, AI is useful, but if you're not understanding the fundamentals,
you don't understand
then that's kind of a miscarriage of our role trying to educate our kids to thrive. Because we can't expect them to rely on the new technology.
I'm retweeting shit.
Underlying understanding of the problems we're trying to solve. Otherwise, they're not going to become entrepreneurs, right? They're going to get these middle-of-the-road occupations supporting those people who are established and
who wakes up at 5 in the morning to work out? Don't you get up and, you know, you warm up to it. You don't just jump right into a workout. You sip some coffee, smoke some. No, fuck that. You gotta warm up. You should work out like, you know, they say like afternoon, 12 o'clock's like the best time to work out. But most people have to work, so they can't work out.
See you later, Jew boy.
You can't touch social media. If you're between 16 and 18, the only people you can interact with is people who are also 16 and 18. Use those as the training wheels to get people prepped.
Brian.
An absolute mountain of bullshit they'll run into once they become adults.
Brian, great point you're making. But let me ask you, Keith, I got you, but I want to ask Brian a question. I want to get Necro in the conversation because he's been patiently waiting. So there's been this great debate on Clubhouse over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've been privy to it about teenagers on this app, right? They lowered the age of consent to be on this app. And there's this young man, he's 14 years old, very well spoken, he's a debater and all this other stuff. And it really has divided Clubhouse. Some people think it's okay. I personally don't want teenagers in my space. But what do you think about something like that Clubhouse lowered the age of consent to be on this app?
I think whoever is running trust and safety on Clubhouse has taken a massive risk. I wouldn't have touched that decision with a 6-foot pole, right? The risk of inviting kids onto this platform, knowing full well that you've got them on here, now you've got the social media liabilities that come with it, those risks vastly outweigh the possible benefits of identifying a handful of people who are very eloquent and well-spoken, right? Even if they are eloquent and well-spoken, you know what? Give them a sandbox, right? Let them, if you're going to say 13 to, you know, like minors, right? People above, like 13 and above, under 18, give them a sandbox. They can interact with other people in a sandbox, right? Like, don't go and open this up so that, you know, you've got like 40, 50-year-old people that can then slide into their DMs. God knows the risks that come with that. I think that's just a wild, harebrained, desperate decision by Clubhouse. I know that sounds dramatic, but I really think so.
No, bro, I agree with everything. You're not giving me it up, but the reasoning behind it was that they were hemorrhaging so many people leaving the app. They figure if they open up to kids, then the kids will bring their friends and it's become more of a teen app. CO?
Yeah. I agree with you. I was going to say it's about shareholder and profitability for whatever it's worth. I got 2 daughters, 18, 25, and I understand I don't like anybody, you know, put my daughters into risk of being subjected to stuff they don't need to see or people they don't need to talk to. So I just hate it. But what does Clubhouse do if the numbers are going down and there are no kids on the apps more than us old folks? So hey, they have to make a business decision. I'm assuming maybe they'll be the next Clubhouse. No,
you're completely right.
No, I agree.
You're completely right.
Yeah. I do want to mention sometime when you guys are talking about education because Last year, Brian, I don't know if you were on the stage or were listening earlier, but we were talking about parenting and how Generation X and baby boomers might not be doing as good a job. We're talking about the perils of what children are going through and their access to information on social media. And now we're talking about Clubhouse. I'll advance the conversation just a little bit, kind of move a little bit into the political conversations that everybody's having. So with all that being the case, objectively discussing it, how do you guys feel about dismantling the Department of Education as opposed to realigning and refocusing it and giving it more resources so that we don't end up with a dumber generation than you guys are describing that we have now?
Theo, let me ask you a question. Before anybody answers, let me just ask Theo this question real quick.
What?
In your opinion, what benefit does the Department of Education have for our children? Give me some benefits of it.
So obviously, from what I understood, and I'll be honest with you, specifically JB, I haven't dived all the way into the specific. I know teachers need more resources and more money. I know that they regulated the loan process to make sure that they monitored who they were giving grants to and how those the resources were divvied out with regards to kids getting to college. I know they set or had some protocols on curriculum. So I know they had a general, purview or overview of all of the systems, K through 12 and going to college. So I'm not specific. That's why I said, rather than dismantling it, or maybe there's some other intention, if we have all of these challenges where we're discussing things that does require a greater partnership between parents and K through 12 schools, why wouldn't the idea be to revitalize, refocus it, and give it more resources?
JB, let me actually answer your question right on the nose and see how this will support your point. This is a personal anecdote, but there's plenty of others that can support it. I grew up poor in this country to immigrant parents, right? So first generation going to college here in the U.S. And I was so poor, FAFSA expected family contribution was zero, right? I commuted to college. I did not dorm, right? The Pell Grants and the state grants were enough to cover all 4 years of me, doing community college and then commuting to a 4-year school to finish that 4-year degree off after transferring from 2-year school. Finished school, did it with no student debt off of the backs of Pell Grants and other grants from the state I live in, from Virginia, right? And that probably totaled up to around 30 grand, right? Because of the way I did it, just doing tuition, just doing community college the first 2 years, then doing, a 4-year university after that. But that all totaled up to probably around 30 grand if I had to guess. I have been paying at least that much right out of college in taxes every year, right? And now I pay I pay an order of magnitude on that figure in taxes every year, right? The return on that investment, right, was colossal. That was probably the biggest value that the Department of Education's grant programs had, was just being able to spur on people who otherwise might not have had access to get into the economy. Now, the other thing is, if you look at what happens, like what the profile is, the voting profile for people that have an education versus people who don't, overwhelmingly people who have some amount of a graduate level or even undergraduate level education tend to vote for more, progressive policies, right? It's the people who are not going to, the variety of undergraduate and graduate programs that exist, who then end up voting for more reactionary or conservative policies and outcomes. And as a result, it then puts a pretty uncomfortable question. I'll land on this. It makes a lot of sense for politicians that swing that way and say, well, if people who don't have an education are voting in our favor, it makes sense to broaden the base of people that don't have an education. I land.
Thank you, but my question is, I'm going to go to Jeremy. CEO, thank you for bringing up the subject, by the way. Can't the states do this? Why does the federal government have to do this? So we're gonna go to Jeremy Allen Keith. Get Jeremy.
I think the answer is that if you're a country, you want all your citizens to have access to the same quality of education. And so you do want like a federal standard, but I don't think that any educational department in the U.S. is demonstrating excellence. Like America spends about $17,000 a year on public education for their citizens, and yet, depending on what marker you want to go off of, you're anywhere from 10th to 22nd when it comes to education in the world for that return. Right, like Canada, as an example, spends less, $14,000 on average, and is in top fives, usually top three when it comes to the same education marker, right? And so the problem is like what's been done before isn't working, and I think the solution is going to just get like statistical data on what are the most successful education methodologies and start implementing those. Right, like Waldorf and other methodologies that just like statistically produce more successful students. You should start implementing those type of education systems. And I'll land here, right, is that like I think what Brian said is important. You got to ask yourself a question, like if you're totally cool with free K to 12. But you take offense with the idea of like free university for people who have worked hard enough to make it into that university. That's insane. Like in my country, it's like $1,200 USD a year to send your kids to the best universities and school. And like Brian said, that person's going to go and get a better job, pay more taxes, employ more people. Like it's insane that there's an invisible line between high school and university. It's crazy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm glad Jeremy and I agree, even if we disagree violently on it.
Listen, I get it. I'm with you on that, Brian. Alan, I got you. Give me a second. CEO, Marshall, are you there, Marshall? I gotta step aside for 5-10 minutes. You want to keep the room open, and I'll come back, or?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, thank you, brother. I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, so I think I was next.
Wait.
Yeah, back in 2019, I was heavily into this because California was going to change its math frameworks for the entire state. And as I looked into it, one of the things that came out was through the National Teachers of Math Association, or National Math Educators, or whatever it was, that they had published, or a report was published, that math scores have not changed in the last 60 years. And I myself consider myself a victim of what at the time was called New English and New Math. So one of the things, like we were never taught the rules of grammar. It was like some instinctual way we were supposed to know what was correct grammar and what was not in a written sentence or spoken word. Yeah, we've been doing so my view is we've been doing this we need more resources, we need to develop better methodologies, on and on and on and on and on. And it isn't working. And then as far as the Department of Education, I was looking for the chart, I had it, but you look at the administrative expenditures compared to the overall test scores, and the expenditures have gone up like 3 times, 4 times, I forget. I mean, it's an enormous amount. And the test scores still remain the same. So, yeah, I mean, this is, first of all, yeah, it would be nice, as Jeremy said, I think it was Jeremy said, if we had a nationalized system. We've tried that. It ain't working. And that chart I was talking about, that was tracking the scores since whenever it was Jimmy Carter established the Department of Education. So yeah, and I think back, you you look back at what we were teaching kids even 100 years ago, the level of what's the word I'm looking for? The level that we were teaching those kids was much higher, and it's all gone away, because we have these new ways that are going to be more effective, and they're not. Statistically, they're not. We're looking at, and like, he left. Was it Jeremy who was saying that Canada is third in terms of its teaching? I forget what the United States is in terms of ranking, but I know California was like 38th in the country. So
Jeremy just loves touting how much more affordable everything is in Canada. Everything in Canada is better according to Jeremy. Jeez, Jeremy.
Yeah, well,
Patriots World
I definitely got that by Doge.
with your host,
For
Dr.
sure.
Comedy.
But
I think somebody kicked me. I think Marshall Rankin kicked me. God, he is pathetic.
A drunk Marshall kicking Dr. Comedy out.
Pathetic.
Pathetic. Eat Patriots World Premiere 2025 with your host.
Super pathetic.
Can you put a stop to it? No. You're not getting the point. That's a dispute. Like, he claims that it stretches to only after the Muslim invasion of India, right? It was about 1100.
Hey, we're not going to do it.
That's the point that was the contention.
Damn, motherfucking head. Holding on me, bro.
No, I'm not there.
The local club, they were where they were, in their neighborhoods or wherever they were. They had a big street team and they brought the people out. You know what I'm saying? Too short. I was selling stuff out my truck on my car, Master B. Even people in the stuff, Luke was saying they were selling shit out there. See how it started? That foundational thing started in Florida. Luke was down there doing his thing, and they were doing local shows, and hip hop was under control. It was controlled by the artists then, But then, like you said, the distribution.
Let's start going with these industries and let everybody else dictate our fucking art, bro. And it's so bad where now it even comes down to the streets where you got a motherfucker from Ireland telling a street story that happened on the corner of LA, bro. What the fuck are we doing, man?
What is going on here? What just happened? You know what I'm saying? So they're over there studying us. That's the same method. You know what I'm saying? You studying the craft, and then you say, "That's all I have to say." But it's not authentic enough, but people will buy it because they consider it universe, But if you consider something hip hop, people say, "Oh, it's gonna die. Hip hop gonna die." My bro, it's never gonna die. Turn on the TV. Commercial guy, hip hop tracks and beats and everything that you deal with, every company.
When the RZA said Wu-Tang Forever, I believe he truly meant that shit. Cause them boys was fucking different. They were before their time, bro. Oh my God.
And then you think about how long ago that was. That Purple Haze with Raekwon, and also when people look back, I said, let me throw some history in your lap. You do remember what Onyx was doing?
Oh my God.
I said, what's good?
Okay. Yeah, how you doing?
Yo, check out who invited Tyler. Don't invite me up in this broke ass room. These broke ass people cool. Who invited Tyler though?
That's not you. That's not you.
Okay. Hey, yo. He said, niggas broke.
Yeah.
Yo, Tyler, do the right thing, Tyler.
You broke, bitch ass. Nah, he left. Don't worry, he left. He'll dodge. We sent you an invite. All right, sir. Come upstairs.
So wow, this guy Darren, man, you really need to get your own identity, dude. Copying my identity is not really advantageous.
Wait, Evan got your identity?
I'm talking to Darren.
This is him?
Because Darren has a picture of me that is.
I thought that was the actor from Willow Creek.
So You need to call.
Yo, what's that on your face though, bro? Hold on, I'm gonna zoom in right quick so you can see. Hold on.
Yo, that Egyptian pharaoh is God.
Yo, what's that on your face though?
Why the Egyptian keep leaving and coming back? Why you keep leaving and coming back, bro?
What I leave is once I did is wrong, I'm gone. Once I did this shit, what I leave.
Let's help you out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hate when they say that.
Is this the Longmont Potion Castle prank call show?
One guy is working on $7 trillion in reparations. My only source of
here we go with the trillions.
And that's good, man. You know. And then I'm doing this.
Nah, he's racist. He called me a nigga one time, bro. No, I swear he's fucking racist.
Were you acting like one?
N-word.
That nigga got bad at court.
Who is saying that?
Let it all out.
Yeah.
Hey, we're trying to get out of here. Go to sleep, bro.
How much long? When are you guys gonna start talking about something?
Yo, who's playing that bullshit, nigga?
Come on.
Wait. Who playing that?
The Goodman Hot Smokers. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I think he called you a cock smoker. Yo, Kate, no music, sir. No music, sir.
So, Tyler, what do you have for dinner?
Come on, let's go.
Imitation is flattery. That's all I can say.
Why he want to be you, though, Kate? Why is he doing that?
Stupid, to be honest.
Yeah, that's not America, sir. That's like Black Americans specifically. So just like throw the blanket and be like, oh, it's America. No.
Nah.
Black Americans.
Everything on there.
So Nacho, let me tell you this, right? So I'm from the East Coast. I moved to Oklahoma 2 years ago. May it be 2 years I've been living in Oklahoma. I took a job.
Is this the Longmont Potion Castle prank call show?
White. I'm in the middle of America.
Yo, Chris, you know I got that Longmont Potion Castle CD. I bought on eBay. It's not that funny. It's like okay, but honestly, I think the funniest thing about Longmont Potion Castle is like creating new prank calls that are even better. And then Longmont Potion Castle is complaining on my videos saying, remove Longmont Potion Castle. Like, you have nothing to do with me. It's just, like, literally, like, the Longmont Potion Castle is, like, pissed that I'm, like, doing a better job than him because his comedy is weak sauce. So I'm having fun with that. So thanks for introducing me to Longmont.
Well, I said that, that I'm seeing this, cross other demographics.
No one does prank calls better than me. Not even Longmont.
What's very alarming for me is that even the women that have a faith background, I don't care if it's Catholic, Protestant, Pentecostal, non-denominational. You sit down and have a conversation with them, and they could be more. I mean, they are more.
Did you just figure this out about women?
Say that again.
Women have always been like this. It's nothing new under the sun.
Well, again, but I'm talking about.
I think it got really worse. It's just got worse in the West.
I'm talking about the women that
wow. After comedy's heating it up right now.
Background.
World premiere 2025.
They believe in God, but they don't stick with God's order or God's way of doing things, and that's a real problem because you have a lot of, and especially inside the black church. I mean, you got some fine sisters, the 8s, 9s, 10s. They come in with a pencil skirt and a hat, but they're like a walking Kamala Harris, and it's like
Kamala Harris is very successful, so but she's educated, correct? But is she educated?
Yes, she's educated.
Okay, cool.
But we don't look for women who are educated, though.
You may not, because an educated woman is something that you want just in case things go wrong. You want to have somebody who's very educated, who understands finances, who understands economics, who understands.
This is normally in March. It's normally in March of next year, though. The second year.
But the problem
was it State of the Union this year?
No, I thought
he did that in lieu of, and then next year in March.
Or a PhD, or because they think that if they can find a man that has a master's or PhD, that they'll be that means that their marriage will be successful, and that's not.
No. The reason why women are out here educating themselves because they want to be better, right? There's women out here that set goals for themselves, right? I come from a single black mother who set goals and who was very successful, which actually led me to see